Hello once again and welcome to Herd Immunity News. I'm Marcus Botza. Today I have the great pleasure in welcoming onto the Herd Immunity Show Councillor Brian Silvester. Now, Councillor Brian Silvester has had an amazing run with his group called Putting Crewe First. This is an incredible journey that's an inspiration to anybody who's looking to get involved in politics and to change things for good. But before I go any further, let me just say, Brian, how are you, sir?
I'm fine. I'm well.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad you're in good spirits because you've just come off one hell of a battle and one hell of a fight in the elections up in beautiful Crewe, Cheshire. So, if you could just tell our viewers and listeners a little bit about your own political journey and how you've become such a prominent character and figure in Crewe.
Well, I've been a councillor for a long time, and I formed Putting Crewe First in 2020, and the reason behind that was that myself and many others, were so appalled about what was happening in Crewe or what was not happening in Crewe, and there's all sorts of issues that were not being addressed. Many of the issues which will be familiar with your viewers and listeners, because I'm talking about things like potholes and litter and fly tipping and street lights that don't work and all this sort of stuff. The basics really of a local community, which were just not being addressed at all. And the issues that the people wanted to be dealt with are not being dealt with by the council. Cheshire East, which is the unitary council for Crewe, is Labour run, and the town council is Labour run. And they're just not listening. And so that's the reason for it. And so I set it up in 2020. We stood in a couple of by-elections, did really well. And then the main elections for both the town council and the borough council, the Cheshire East Unitary, was last May. And in that, in Crewe, there are altogether, there's 30, will you believe, council seats, 10 Cheshire East seats and 20 town council. We stood in all 30, and we got 29% of the vote in the town council, which was remarkable, really. For the first time we stood in an all-out election, we got 29% of the vote. If we had a fair voting system, we would now have 6 town councillors and 2 borough councillors, 2 Cheshire East councillors. But we don't have a fair voting system. This country really does need PR for local elections. And some of your listeners and viewers won't realise this, but in Scotland and Northern Ireland, they've had PR for local elections for a long, long time. And in Wales, it is any council in Wales who wants to have PR elections can do so. So again, as always, England is the poor man, the poor relation in terms of all this, and we really do need PR for local elections for us to get 29% of the vote and just get one councillor. We've got one councillor elected, and that in itself was a story, because that's the first time ever that there's been a non-Labour councillor on the town council. So it was pretty good, a good start, really.
Yeah, it's a very remarkable start, and for anybody that's run a campaign as an independent candidate or a non-large party, a fringe party, if you like, that is one hell of an effort, because you're catching up with the big boys in a very short period of time. And as you correctly say, in Scotland, we have PR with the Holyrood elections, for example. So smaller parties are allowed to get a foothold on the ladder.
But not only in Holyrood, but in your local councils as well.
Yes.
Yes. And that's the point.
Correct. So what made you formulate this party instead of going to Labour or to the Conservatives? Some people call it the UniParty, Brian, because you can't tell any difference between the two. They're like two cheeks in the same vaccine.
I fully agree. It is a UniParty. And Crewe has got a Tory MP and a Labour council, and neither of them are any good. So there's no chance that with either of those two. So you got to have an alternative. There was no alternative, so I set one up. In the elections last May, for the 30 seats that are available, as I said, we put up 30 candidates. The Tories only put up 18. It just shows you how, we are now established as the main opposition to Labour in Crewe, and that is, that's a good position to be on for the future.
I mean, when you're out on the doorstep, what kind of things are people saying to you? Obviously, with such a large vote share, really, after a couple of years, you're obviously connecting with them in a way that the other parties are not. I mean, what are they saying to you on the doorstep?
Well, the campaigning, the canvassing for these recent elections, last year and the recent by-election, has never been easy. I've been a councillor a long time, but I've never had canvassing so easy, because all you had to do is knock on the door and say, we're Crewe First. We're not party political. We're just a group of individuals who are trying to improve the town. What do you think about the town? The town, for example, the town centre is a disgrace. And they said, yeah, tell me about it. And virtually nobody would disagree with us that the town centre, for one, is a total mess. There's a big redevelopment that was going to happen, which has never happened. And people like myself have been saying for over 2 years, it's never going to happen. You've got to choose some alternative, because the town centre is sinking fast, really fast. And very soon we'll have no town centre left. And people are just not going into the town centre. People in Crewe, and I remember one guy who I canvassed said that his relatives are from abroad, but if they came over from abroad, he'd be ashamed to take them into the town. Ashamed, and I can understand that. So something's got to be done about that. And so basically, you've got issues like that, like the town centre, where nothing's being done about it. Millions of pounds being wasted. Spent £11 million on a multi-storey car park that nobody wants. Just absolutely amazing. So you got issues like that, and you got the basic issues I referred to earlier. The fundamental day-to-day issues like the potholes, the roads, the litter, the fly tipping. The street lights not working, that sort of thing, that needs, and the graffiti, and all that needs to be addressed.
Because as you correctly say, that after 2010, the spending model was changed as to what it used to be. Obviously, there was a control on the budget centrally from Westminster, but now the councils, they're all different to certain extents, but they're allowed to keep a lot more of their own money and spend it as they see fit. That's why many people are arguing that there shouldn't be any political party involvement or any party line. Like, for example, the net zero ideology seems to be dominating councils over and above development of the high street. How are you challenging this mentality to net zero?
Well, net zero seems to be the new religion, and the Cheshire East quite proudly say that they're one of only 2 councils in the whole of the country. I think the other one is in Scotland, who plan to be net zero as a council by next year, 2025. It's just incredible. And they set up a £3 million solar farm just outside Crewe, and spending millions on net zero, but they're not spending money on potholes. This is the problem. And people, again, like I say, on the doorstep, you say that to people and say, hey, you're right. Something's got to be done about it.
I mean, are people really at their wits' end? Are they struggling to even just keep the fire on at home?
Yeah, well, obviously the cost of living has been really damaging for people throughout the country, and obviously in Crewe as well. And the council tax, it's not as if the council tax isn't going up; it's going up by the maximum amount, at least 5% a year, every year. And people, how are they expected to afford all this? They're paying more money for less service. That's the trouble. The potholes in Crewe have never been as bad, ever. I've been a councillor for over 40 years, never been as bad.
And the lunacy as the potholes stand is that citizens have actually gone out and fixed them to a reasonably high standard, and they've been the council have come along, and this has happened in Scotland and parts of England, and they've actually destroyed the patch-up job done. So they'll take some bitumen and they'll pour it in, and it's to a reasonable standard. It might last you a couple of years, but they've actually dug it up and brought back the pothole.
That is crazy. Didn't Rod Stewart do one?
Yes.
Rod Stewart did. But the thing is, the point I make is that they've got money for cycle lanes. They've got money for 20 mile per hour zones. They've got money for traffic calming, and they've got money for all these sorts of things, which nobody's asked for. Nobody says, "Oh, please bring in a 20-mile-per-hour zone." But people are begging for the potholes to be filled, and they say, "Oh no, we can't do that." And sadly, I think that it'll take somebody being killed on a pothole before something is being done about it. Because these potholes are dangerous. They're not just damaging the cars, but especially for people on two wheels, they're dangerous.
The other thing is about electric cars that you don't hear spoken about, or electric vehicles, is the weight of these vehicles, Brian. Our roads are not designed to take vehicles of this size. They're calculated when the construction of the roads are done. They're calculated with the average flow of traffic and the wear and tear. Now, when you've got vehicles double the weight and the buses are the same because of the battery size, the lithium batteries, they cause even more damage and turmoil. I don't know if this point ever comes up.
Yeah, but no, that calculation is correct, and nothing's been said about it. Nothing's been done about it. And with the multi-story car park that's now coming to completion in the centre of Crewe, you do wonder whether they've calculated for that, because with a multi-story car park, if it's full of electric vehicles, will it take the strain?
No, it won't take the strain, unfortunately. But on a brighter note, with the emergence of putting Crewe First, their trajectory is going up. And it looks to be at the detriment of mainly the Conservative Party. When you look across the board at the political spectrum in Westminster, they seem to be collapsing under their own weight. They're in a position where, well, Labour are in a position where they really don't have to do much. They have to just sit back and watch them implode. What's the view of the Conservative Party in Crewe at the moment?
Well, I find it a real mystery that the Conservatives are on this course to being wiped out at the general election, and the recent by-elections show this. And the MPs, the Tory MPs in Westminster, for some strange reason, don't seem to be concerned about it. They don't seem to be concerned about losing their job, and clearly many of them will. As a political observer, I would say to those Tory MPs, you've got to get rid of your leader, the PM, because he is a total disaster. As I've seen a lot of PMs come and go in my time, but he is one of the worst. And he's not cutting it with the public. The public don't like him. His policies are all over the place. The Tories, if they want to stand any chance whatsoever in the general election, they need to get rid of Sunak.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And during last year, we have a lot of Conservative followers and listeners to our channel and insiders, and there were growing rumblings that Sunak was going to be replaced before Christmas, after the summer recess. Now, instead of getting together and voting them out, they've gone off in all these splinter families. They call them the five families now. There's New Conservatives, there's Conservative Democratic Organisation. You look round and there's another one popping up, and they've got the same characters, the Jacob Rees-Moggs and the Dean Doris. They didn't actually get together, form an alliance and say, we need to get a new leader, because there is a narrative that goes out there in the mainstream, Brian, that says, oh, we can't have another leader, even though they're heading into the iceberg.
No, I think that's ridiculous. If you remember, if you take your time back to 2019, just before the general election in 2019, there was the European elections in the summer of 2019,
yes.
when Mrs. May was still the leader, and the Tories got something like 9% of the vote. It was totally ridiculous. It came about fourth or fifth altogether nationally. They were even worse, much worse than what they are now. Along came Boris, and he got an 80 majority in December of the same year. So in a matter of months, Boris turned it around, and he had a majority of 80. So this idea that you can't turn it around is just nonsense. It's proven nonsense, and that's what the Tories should be doing, but they're clearly not. Crewe and Nantwich is our constituency, and it is a marginal seat. It was Labour in 2017. It went back to Tory in 2019. It looks like going back to Labour in 2024. But who knows?
Yes, you is it right in saying you have you've got a Conservative MP. He's a doctor, isn't he?
Yeah, but again, you see, the Tories are in complete distress in
Mm.
Crewe because Kieran Mullen, who was the MP, Tory MP, he told the Tories that he was going to stand again for re-election, and then a new safe seat came up just on the boundary of Crewe Nantwich, which he had a very small claim on, so he put his name forward for it. He didn't get it, so he tried to do the chicken run. And he failed. And then he went quiet, and now he's just announced that he's not going to stand again. So the Tories will have to fight the seat with a new candidate.
Yeah, I mean they're all running around for the lifeboats right now. They are looking at other jobs. They are, as you say, trying to cherry pick and get into the safest seats possible. And it's looking like a complete disaster. Something may happen. There may be a leadership change. There are rumours that go around that Nigel Farage may join. I can't see that happening. I really can't. Can you?
No, I think that there's talk of Boris coming back, but Boris is not an
Yeah.
MP, and so it'd be very difficult for him to be leader if he's not an MP. And same with Farage. Farage is playing games, I think, really, and he's just teasing people. And so it's difficult. But if there was a leadership election in the Tories, somebody, more than one, would come forward, and anybody, but Sunak will stand a better chance because it is a total disaster. I just shake my head in disbelief. I don't understand why Tory MPs can't see what we see.
Well, look, mass immigration has been one of the key topics, and it was in 2019. Go back to 2016, and I don't care what anybody says about trade. They talk about regulations coming out of Brussels, the army, the EU army. Mass unlimited immigration was front and centre. You could not avoid it. Now, with the best will in the world, Brian, which I'm sure you share to anybody who's in peril overseas, do we not have a responsibility to the people of this country first?
The immigration now is the number one issue. No doubt, no doubt about it. Both legal immigration and illegal immigration. In Crewe, we've got 3 hotels now with asylum seekers, and they're also in other locations in the town, and they've been there for well over a year now, and there's no sign of anything changing there. With the illegal immigration coming across the channel, it's been going on for 6 years. Right, 6 years it's been going on. Over 140,000 have come across the channel. And it's incredible. If the Tory government really wanted to stop them, they could. I've come to the conclusion some long time ago that they don't want to stop them. Although they say they want to stop them, of course, they have to say something. And this thing with Rwanda is a joke. It's never going to happen. It's just playing for time. All they're doing it for is to say, well, we are doing something about it. We're trying to do something, but the evil lawyers are stopping us, or the Labour Party are stopping us. There's nobody stopping them. If they wanted to turn the boats around, safely turn the boats around and return them to French waters, they could do so. They don't want to.
If you had more councillors in position in your areas, in Crewe, say you got 3 or 4, you could potentially put a stop to the hotels, for example, coming through.
Well, see, the thing with the hotels, it's done through the Home Office, as far as I can tell, it's difficult. With all this, it's difficult to get information out of them. But from what I can glean, is that the Home Office just come along and say to Cheshire East, right, we're going to put X hundreds of asylum seekers in Crewe, and I don't think the council has a lot of say in it. So it's the Home Office which is really the problem. But we've had a sort of session of Home Secretaries wringing their hands and saying they're going to do something about it. Done nothing, absolutely nothing.
I think it may well be the case then, if you don't have a say on the hotels, you do of houses of multiple occupancy. I know up here in Scotland, our councillors can really object if there are too many in proximity of each other, because this is what happens. Towns that are harder hit socially, economically, are given these, are told that they're going to have these, but the council can actually fight it. because obviously they take so much off the budget. But the problem they'll have in Crewe, I guess, like everywhere else, Brian, is that not only do they lose the revenue from the hotel going to HMRC, the taxpayers are paying for it, and the locals are paid off. Is that the case?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The health service is a disaster. We've got now 7.6 million on the waiting list, 7.6 million. And interestingly, it came out only this week that is not the full extent of it, because what's happening is that to people on the waiting list, if they get their first consultation, they're then taken off the waiting list. Even though they've not been healed and not had the operation they wanted, but they just had the first consultation. And so the real waiting list is several million more than what they're telling us. So it just goes from bad to worse.
That's right. I mean, the councillors can only do so much. They can only put up their protestations or give a green light. But in my experience and others that contribute to our show is a lot of them from the larger parties just seem to be there to pick up a paycheck before they go on to try and become MPs.
Well, yeah, the councillors in Cheshire East, they're on about 12,800 a year, and that's just the basic. And the ones with the top jobs can get 30 or 40,000 a year. So for some, it's like a full-time job. And you've got a chief executive who's paid a whopping salary, way more than the prime minister. It's all ridiculous. Too many fat cats, and that's the problem.
Now, I've got to be careful what I say here, but without naming names, how corrupt would you say that the council contracting situation is in England?
Well, people talk about people getting
backhanders, brown envelopes,
that sort of thing. All I can go on is, I tend to just deal with evidence. I've not seen evidence of that. People can say that, and if they can prove it, something needs to be done about it. But I can't say that I've got evidence of that.
Sure, that's fair enough. It's a question that often comes up because people wonder why it's the same companies that get the job time and time again. Companies, for example, like Serco, but these are done at the Home Office level, I presume.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Serco made a mint out of this, and you see that recently, where again the government is saying that they're going to give 5-year contracts to landlords to house asylum seekers. Now, if they're serious about stopping the asylum seekers, why on earth are they giving 5-year contracts? We know full well why they're giving 5-year contracts, because they've got no intention of stopping them.
Absolutely, Brian, absolutely. And we've also been contacted by some of our insiders again to say that there's a huge drive now on HMRC to have more people dealing with cases chasing up small to medium-sized enterprises. Now, these are the backbone of our country, but they all seem to be under attack. The white van man. I don't know if you're in an area where you have restrictions on your speed or emissions like you, Les, but if you're not now, it will be coming.
Well, yeah, sadly, there is a war on the motorists. There's no doubt about that. And what we have seen in Crewe is the encroachment of these 20-mile-per-hour zones, which are totally unnecessary. People have not asked for them. And actually, the research that's been done on them shows that, if anything, the number of accidents increase with 20-mile-per-hour zones for a variety of reasons, which I won't go into detail now, but for a variety of reasons, the accidents actually increase in 20-mile-per-hour zones. So the whole totally pointless. And in parts of Crewe, they're introducing. It is part of the ward where I stood in the by-election. They're introducing 20-mile-per-hour limit and traffic calming. Well, why on earth do you need traffic calming and 20-mile-per-hour limits? It's just nonsense. But it's all part of this agenda, as you quite rightly say. A war on the motorist. They want us, you and me, to get rid of the cars, what is on bicycles or on buses or on trains, and it ain't going to happen. And the problems with electric vehicles are growing, as we know, and the whole narrative about electric vehicles it's just being destroyed, and the fire risk from electric vehicles is something which has not been addressed.
So, from the average man and average woman in the streets point of view, they can affect change by a couple of ways. They can vote at the local council elections, they can vote at the national elections, but there's obviously a very long period to wait to affect any change. We have noticed that there are a lot of people taking action and matters into their own hands in the southeast of England. This is a story that we've covered considerably. Now, obviously, neither you or I are going to condone any illegality or any wrongdoings publicly, but you can perhaps see where the frustrations are lying. People are losing their businesses, Brian, paying £12.50 a day, especially when they look at Sadiq Khan in the Imperial College London statistics, and they say that they're actually being cajoled and altered to make money out of people. Can you understand where the credulity comes from?
Absolutely, and it's not about pollution, because if you think about it, in London, if you've got a car which they say is polluting, that's questionable. But let's suggest it might be true. So you have a car that's polluting, and do they say, okay, well, you've got to take that car? No, they don't say that. All they say is that you can still use it, but you've got to pay us £12. So a day, as you quite like you say. And so it's not about pollution, it's about raising money for Sajid Khan, the London mayor, so he can waste it on his pet plans.
Well, we've been contacted again by many of our listeners and viewers, Brian. Some of them have accumulated £11,500 in fines. Now, that's after a 9-month period.
Yeah.
One chap's near suicide because he doesn't have that money.
No.
So people are taking matters into their own hands, and they're not doing it because they're bad people, they're nasty people. They're doing it because they're at their wits' end. And you're saying similar things are happening in Crewe with the 20 mile an hour limits and zones. I mean, what reaction do you get from the public down there? What do they say, and how can you affect change?
Well, they can't understand why they keep coming up with these schemes to introduce yet more cycle lanes, yet more 20 mile per hour zones, yet more traffic calming, when they won't fill the potholes. I think, well, what on earth are you doing? Are you mad? It's clearly the priority is to repair the roads, keep the streets litter free, get rid of the fly tipping, get rid of the graffiti, and make the place a better place to live. But no, they won't do that, and it's just remarkable. And the other thing which they're talking about in Crewe now, which is I fear might be something along the lines of what's happening in London, is talking about introducing what they call a Little Holland, which would be a part of Crewe where they would encourage cyclists and cycle lanes and pedestrians, and the motorists would find it very difficult. So that has already been consulted on in Crewe, and whether it will go further, I hope not, but I suspect it might.
On education and in schools, there are a lot of people concerned with the indoctrination of our young children. Now, these are all the LGBTQ plus parents, or maybe Christian or not Christian. They're very concerned about what's being taught in school to their kids. They don't want these subjects raised when they're 5 and 6 years old. They think it's absolutely disgusting and demonic. We've had the leader of the family party on here, Richard Lucas, who secretly recorded a meeting, and he read out what the children are subjected to, and they tried to stop him because it was very, very graphic information. I won't put you off your tea, but it was all about bananas being dipped into chocolate. I'll let your own imagination work out what was said. But do you have concerns into what our children are being taught with these so-called well-meaning groups?
Absolutely, yeah, and there's no need for it. Again, there's no call for it from the parents. It's obviously come from a directive from on high, why are these directives? It seems to me that somebody or some people are trying to undermine the family, undermine the family situation, and to really bring adult issues to children at far too young an age. There's no need for it, and it should never happen. It should be banned. And again, the government should step in. They should ban things like this. They should say, look, schools under a certain age, they cannot introduce these subjects, and because it's almost like child abuse, a lot of what's going on. And the other thing is that this about changing gender. I don't think any child, no child, should be allowed to change the gender at all, even if the parents agree with it. It should not be allowed until they are adult. They should not be allowed to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, there are very few people I know, Brian, over 50 that give this the thumbs up at all. They're not just from the Christian sector, they're from Muslim sector, the Jewish sector, the Hindus, the Sikhs. They all think this is absolutely disgusting and disgraceful. But it's one of those things and issues that I think people would look to a party like yours for help. If they're not bothered about politics, they certainly care about their children and their children's future.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we need to put pressure on the government, not just to issue guidance, but pass a law and say, look, you cannot do this. You cannot do that. And you're not going to bring all these adult issues in front of the children when there's absolutely no need to do so. And the other issue, of course, is to improve the standard of education. I'm a former lay school inspector, inspected over 250 schools, and it's important to get good education and good schools for every child. And I think the government's the target's got to be that every child in the country is attending a good school, and that's not impossible to achieve. And that's what we should do, because the kids only have one chance in education, and sadly, some of the kids and some of the ones in Crewe are not getting the good education that they need for the life in the future.
In Crewe itself, in the Cheshire area, what direction is Christianity taking?
I don't think it's going along as per normal. I don't see any big issues. Although the I would have thought the main issue from the church point of view is the leadership of the Anglican Church is pathetic, really, and they don't seem to be on the side of the average British person, more on the side of illegal immigrants.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been weaponized and very politicized, as you correctly say. You may well be alluding to the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby.
Very much.
He seems to have waded in. He uses the House of Lords. A lot of people saying, what the hell is he doing in the House of Lords? And they can't understand why he's abusing his platform to do all these things.
Or even why have we got a House of Lords?
Well, exactly. Are you for the abolition of the House of Lords, sir?
Absolutely, yeah. Get rid. Get rid.
Well, no surprise, we'll agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Look, before we go, what advice would you give to anyone else that's looking to put forward the Auchtermuchty first, or whether it be Bromley first or Cranborough first? What advice would you say to them from grassroots? How do you get started, and what should they do?
It's not that difficult. All you need to do is to register the party with the Electoral Commission, which I've done, obviously. It's not a great deal of money involved. And so you get registered, and then the name and your logo appears on the ballot paper, and you're an official party, and away you go. What I've managed to use the social media locally to good effect, and when we put up 30 candidates last May, a lot of those candidates came through my contacts on social media, because when people responded to me or supported something I posted, I would get back in touch with them and say, well, how about you getting involved? And 30 of them did. And so we've got to use social media, and it's a good job. It really is a good job. We've got social media, because in Crewe, and no doubt it's the same throughout the country, that parties like mine, who are clearly in second place to Labour in Crewe, are not getting the coverage from the so-called mainstream legacy media. I've complained bitterly to them, saying that it's not right, it's not fair, that when an issue arises, like, for example, when the northern leg of the HS2 was cancelled, which affected Crewe quite badly. When that came up, the mainstream media just went to the Labour Party, went to the Tory Party, and said, "What do you think? What do you think?" And never came to us and said, "Well, what do you think?" And I complained bitterly about it, and nothing happened. So I feel like a complaint to Ofcom and whatever needs to be put forward, because it's not fair on local parties. It's difficult enough in a first past the post system for a new party, a local party, who are not. We don't have a lot of resources. We're self-funded, and difficult enough without the media being totally, utterly biased against you.
Absolutely, and I think we'll leave obviously the links to your Twitter's page, because you are becoming a louder and louder and more ever-present Twitter sensation, sir. You are. I mean, you're getting up to the 50,000 mark in Twitter followers, which is and some of your tweets are getting hundreds of thousands and millions of views over the month or whatever you're getting. And we support you, and we recommend anyone that follows us follow you.
Thank you.
And you're really a very, very positive template into what can be done. There you go, 30 like-minded souls that really care about their area, from different backgrounds, and different careers, different ages, get together, and you are affecting change. Is that fair to say?
Oh, we are definitely bringing change, and on social media, I've got my own personal account on Twitter, Councillor B Silvester, but also Crewe First at Crewe First. And the same with Facebook. I've got my own Councillor B Silvester, and putting Crewe First on Facebook. So please, anybody listening and watching, please sign up.
I'll give you the final word, Brian, and thank you very much once again for coming on Heard Immunity News. I really think it's a fascinating story about the success that you've had to get up to the election share and the vote that you get. Whether it be a high turnout or low turnout, you've certainly galvanised people in a very, very short period of time. So everyone from Heard Immunity News salute you and your great team that you've got, and everyone that stood. But what would you like to say before you go? What sort of final sentiments and words would you give out to our listeners tonight?
I think that across the country, what we're seeing is that people are saying, "What on earth is going on?" They can't believe that their town, their area is so appallingly bad, and what can we do about it? And it's no use just shrugging your shoulders, and you've got to get out there and do something. And what we've shown, that you can do something. And if people want to contact me on Facebook or Twitter, I'm quite willing to give advice to people direct on these issues. It's not that difficult to form your own local party, put up the candidates, get people elected, and make a difference. And that's the way forward.
That's great advice indeed. There are other organisations like Citizens Advice out there, but there are mixed reviews, and it can be a postcode lottery, and they do the best they can. But I think people like yourself, Brian, who have got that experience in a multitude of different areas and functions of government, I think they come to yourself, and it can only be a good thing. And all the best to you. And thank you very much, Councillor Brian Silvester from putting Crewe First, for coming on to Heard Immunity News. God bless you, sir.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you.